And we're back in the car like we never left. Welcome to the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all for spending some of your Sunday early evening here with me in New York. But once again, we're going to skip past all that promotional jazz and get right to the guts of the episode. So I have seen, as Al Pacino famously said, Incentive Woman, but I have seen a relatively recent release. I started to watch the new Nosferatu with Nicholas Hoult and, Bill Skarsgård, but it kind of looked like Freddie Mercury going on there with the mustache. But I only got about 40 minutes of the way through. I was exhausted. I went to sleep, and I just haven't picked it up. But I have seen another movie with Nicholas Hoult, directed by my guy, my single favorite person to ever work in the movie business, 94-year-old Clint Eastwood Jr.'s probably final film, which came out inexplicably in limited release towards the end of last year, despite 93% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. That is a higher score than about 75% of the last 25 Best Picture Oscar winners. Juror number 2 with the 93% on Rotten Tomatoes somehow didn't warrant a major theatrical release. But I watched the movie on Max, and it's free to stream. It's not really free because you have to pay for Max. But if you get that channel, you don't have to pay the $6. It's right now on Amazon Prime. And I am here to report that it is a really good movie. A challenging film, and not in a conventional sense. This is not controversial or polarizing in the way that I've often discussed on the channel, and you know. But this is a movie that is very difficult to watch passively. Yes, there is normal, unfolding of the plot and hero. Is there really a villain? There are a lot of questions in the story that we as the viewer are asked, along with the main character of Justin Kemp, played by Nicholas Hoult. And it is a very difficult film because it sets up an impossible situation, and without telling us, hey, what would you do? There is no way to not ponder, what would you do? So main character of Justin Kemp is a young man. I think that he's probably supposed to be in his early 30s. I don't think that Nicholas Hoult is playing any different than his real age. I think he's probably supposed to be 31, 32, but we're not told. He's a writer. He seems to be doing okay. He's a recovering alcoholic, and his wife, I guess they've probably been together, I want to say 5 years, but this is also not, there's a lot of things that we are just supposed to infer that are not, laid out for us or spelled out for us in a blizzard of exposition. There really isn't that much exposition early. We kind of learn more about the main character as the story unfolds in a very kind of organic way. But Justin Kemp is a recovering alcoholic, and he has been sober for quite some time, and he has a sponsor played very well by Kiefer Sutherland, trying very hard to not make us think that he's going to suddenly turn into Jack Bauer and, kill a bunch of bad guys and, movie's over in 25 minutes. But Kiefer is an attorney who plays his sponsor, and Kiefer had talked to Clint at various points earlier in his career. His late father, the great Donald Sutherland, had worked with Clint a couple of times in Kelly's Heroes, Space Cowboys. They were friends. And Kiefer had told Clint on a number of occasions, according to Kiefer's own kind of humorous recollection, I just always wanted to be in one of Clint's movies. And fortunately, in this film, as he was getting Juror number 2 ready, there was a role that he felt that, my kind of screen persona could fit. So he ends up playing, it's a supporting role. He is not going to, spoiler alert, he's not saving the day. He's just an attorney, but it's more that he is the main character's kind of sobriety counselor, his kind of contact person if he's not doing well or not feeling well. And so Justin Kemp's wife is very pregnant. And it's not that she's necessarily having a difficult pregnancy, but she has miscarried, and this is considered a high risk for miscarriage pregnancy. They don't go into the medical reason. Why does the doctor think she miscarried? First thing, we don't know this, but if somebody tells you it's a high risk pregnancy, my takeaway is try to keep the stress levels down try to be with her as much as possible as the husband. It's not always possible, but that's how I interpreted it. So he goes in for jury duty, and he could theoretically get bounced in voir dire, or even before voir dire, when the judge goes over, is there anyone here who maybe is going through a personal situation that I should know about? Not a bias kind of thing, but something that you're experiencing that maybe you shouldn't sit on a jury like this. This case could go on for whatever the judge explains. And he says, well, my wife is in the midst of a high-risk pregnancy, but the judge says, you're not going to be sequestered. It should be a normal 9 to 5 kind of day, a conventional work day. So it should be okay from that perspective. The judge kind of gets a few laughs because she's a bit snarky in her approach, but the point is made. And he answers the questions in such a way from the attorneys that both sides are okay with him sitting on the jury. And then the film takes the form of the legendary Sidney Lumet, Henry Fonda, Lee J. Cobb, E.G. Marshall, Martin Balsam, the cavalcade of stars of 1957's all-time great, top 10 greatest movies ever made, if you ask me, 12 Angry Men. And what I mean specifically is, in that film, it's a case of a kid, like he's probably about 18, who we think has murdered his father after his dad kind of beat up on him one too many times. It's a sort of case where this would never get a murder charge now. If the father had a documented history of beating the shit out of his son and then ended up dead, kid's not going up for murder 1, murder 2, murder anything. But in the world of that film, he is on trial, and he will get the death penalty if there are 12 people to convict. And Henry Fonda doesn't really necessarily think that the kid didn't do it, but there's a lot of problems with this case. There's a bunch of different things that don't make sense, and he wants to talk it out. In the world of this film, as this particular trial unfolds, and it's a case that appears to be a jealous rage or a tempestuous relationship where the guy is a bad egg, he's a gangbanger type, he's done a lot of bad stuff in his life, but he's apparently tried to reform himself, and it's a very problematic relationship with, it's actually one of Clint's daughters, Francesca. I think Francesca is his daughter with the actress Frances Fisher. I'm pretty sure about that. And she's been in a bunch of movies, but it's a limited role, but she's really good in this film. So the case is that these two young people who are in this sort of relationship where they're constantly fighting, throwing punches, cursing each other out, and then 10 minutes later, they're having sex and everything is hunky-dory. Lather, rinse, repeat. And on the night in question, they're at a bar, and they quarrel, and she storms out, and according to the state, she ended up in a ditch, in a ravine. It was a driving rainstorm, and he either cuffed her or somehow she ended up, maybe he punched her and she fell over. We don't know exactly, but he is charged with murder. As luck would have it, our intrepid Justin Kemp, recovering alcoholic, was not doing so well on that night, struggling with the idea that his wife had miscarried, struggling with life, struggling with sobriety, and was on the verge of relapsing. He was in the bar, the same bar, at the same time as the couple in question. He ordered a drink, but he didn't drink it. We see this as the audience. He never touches the drink. On his way home that night, he hit a deer on the road, very close to where the victim's body was found. He quickly realizes that he did not actually hit a deer. He never found a deer on the night of the night in question. He didn't find anything. It was raining too hard. He couldn't really see what the hell was going on. He just assumed he hit a deer. He hit the woman. This is not really a spoiler. It's about 10 minutes into the movie that we learn this. And in the trailer, you also would see it if you watch the trailer for the film. It throws it out there. So, I don't like giving the real heavy-duty spoilers, but this is the substance of drama. A recovering alcoholic was in a bar, ordered a drink. There is no blood alcohol test done at the time, during that night, because he didn't think he did anything other than hit a deer. It's not like, he seems like the kind of guy who probably would have called the police if he accidentally banged into somebody. And the BAC would have been 0, and he may have gotten some kind of a citation, but he clearly wouldn't have mean to hurt anybody. Now he's on a jury with a man who we know as the audience, this guy did not kill her. There's no way he killed her. The only thing that makes sense is that Justin Kemp accidentally ran into her on the road. So the kind of impossible conundrum that Justin Kemp is in, if he votes for guilty, as it seems that 11 of the 12 jurors, even though the evidence is flimsy at best, I would say there's a lot more evidence suggesting the boy's guilt in 12 Angry Men than this. The fact that they even brought charges against this guy is absurd. Like, there's so many holes in the prosecution's case. But this guy was a bad dude. He had done a lot of negative stuff. They had a relationship where he may have beat her around. There may have been some domestic abuse. He was yelling at her. There were people in the bar that thought he was about to get violent. He broke a glass in the bar. It's looking like the drama of it all, he did it. Justin Kemp knows he didn't do it. But the issue is, if he votes this guy guilty, well, nobody's going to be the wiser that he inadvertently killed her. So he starts to lay out why he doesn't think this guy did it. And he doesn't, again, like 12 Angry Men, he doesn't say the guy didn't do it. He's pointing out the obvious, just as someone watching the film. The prosecution's case is ridiculous. There are so many holes in this case. There are so many things that don't make sense. The way that she died, it doesn't seem like she could have died in that fashion. But we just sort of go from there. And Nicholas Hoult is really strong. It's a difficult role to play because the character is both active and reactive, because he knows so much more than he can realistically tell anybody. And what he really would want to do is come forward and say words to the effect of, I hate that this happened, but I am pretty sure that I hit the woman with my car. But when he meets with Kiefer Sutherland, and Kiefer in this moment is in the attorney phase, if you will, or he's wearing his attorney hat because he comes to him, he said, I have a legal question. Okay, well, give me $1. This way, it's, you're technically my client. He doesn't know what he's going to talk about. And when he lays it out from the legal perspective, Kiefer Sutherland says, can't make any bones about it, if this guy ends up not guilty, or if there is some kind of a mistrial, the odds are that eventually they're going to figure out it was your car, it was you, and you have no way of proving. Again, the drama of the story would be recovering alcoholic, relapsed, drank more than just the one drink he ordered at the bar. He could have gone anywhere else and got a bottle of liquor from somebody's house. We don't know. But he would probably spend the rest of his life in prison for what amounted to a terrible accident when he was stone cold sober. So the moral dilemma, the ethical dilemma, the psychological dilemma, you see it all on his face. And we've seen Nicholas Hoult be very broad. I didn't like the movie Renfield. I thought that it kind of wasted Nicolas Cage. Man, Nicolas Cage is good in that film, but the movie was just a misfire. And of course, a million years ago, he was with Hugh Grant in About a Boy when Hugh was, still in his leading man phase. But this film, he acts with his eyes a lot. He has very piercing blue eyes. They almost seem, not to stir up any AI shit, but they almost seem color corrected. They are so strikingly blue. And he is somebody who wants to do the right thing. But Clint, as filmmaker, and he knew all of this, and the actor Toni Collette's talked about this on her social media, and Nicholas Hoult in interviews made a lot of jokes. I said, why did you take the role? He said, well, I was a big fan of Juror number 1. Like that this was a sequel, Juror number 2, making jokes. But this is the classic situation where whatever you do, you're wrong. Because you talk about doing the right thing. Okay, well, what does that mean? The right thing as far as what? The right thing as far as morally and ethically, from a broader perspective. The right thing is to come forward and say, I can't allow this miscarriage of justice to take place. This young man didn't kill her. Yeah, he might be a shitty guy, but he did not do it. I did it. But you could also argue that the right thing is he's a father, or a soon-to-be father. He has a wife who adores him, who he loves. The right thing is to, they're the priority. You know, it's tough break that this guy got into this situation. Maybe if he hadn't been such a shitheel and didn't have such an awful reputation beforehand, well, maybe they wouldn't have thought that he killed his girlfriend or ex-girlfriend, depending on who's telling the story. And were they really 100% broken up like the other 36 times where she said, fuck you, leave me alone, you blah, 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 blah. And then 10 minutes later, they make up. But all of this is on his face, and the strain and the exhaustion that he feels, of course, has trouble sleeping. But we should not, or I can't forget to bring up how good Toni Collette is in this film. And she's somebody who has been around for 3 decades. Her first kind of big break, at least in this country, I think she's Australian. The movie Muriel's Wedding with Rachel Griffiths, another fantastic actress. That's a film I didn't like the first time I saw it because I was expecting, I think, a different movie. It's a film that almost gets better the more you view it, and she is just fire in that film. And that kind of was a springboard to her having a big Hollywood career. Oscar nominee for The Sixth Sense, for example. That was a film that, you know, kind of surprisingly got a ton of Oscar nominations in addition to the critical acclaim at Best Picture nomination, M. Night for Best Director, and it just made a shit ton of money. You know, The Secret, I See Dead People, the whole thing. But Toni Collette, it's a character that feels like it's going to be a stereotypical character, and it's not. She is a hard-charging lawyer who is this close to becoming district attorney. And she has kind of, well, she doesn't tell us or tell people, but if she wins this case, she is probably going to be Madam District Attorney. So she is full steam ahead to get a conviction, even if she thinks, there's some problems with this case. I would like to have a murder weapon. I would like to have more than what I do, but I honestly think this guy did it. But as the story moves forth, she begins to have serious doubts. And then from her perspective, whatever she does, she's wrong. Because she doesn't know for sure, as the trial is ongoing, she doesn't know for sure that the guy is innocent. But there is enough presented and inferred where if she were on a jury, she sure as fuck wouldn't convict because she has reasonable doubt. And the way that Clint is able to have all of these threads moving around through space, and some of them will connect for almost everyone, and others are very personal. Because, for example, we get a sense of at least 3 or 4 of the jurors. There's one gentleman in particular on the jury that will vote this guy guilty even if he knows he didn't do this particular crime, because that guy is a piece of shit. That guy, the tattoo that he has, I have seen it. He's a drug lord, a drug dealer, or somebody who has killed people over drugs. He's guilty. And then you get into, you know, the kind of Mike Tyson angle, if you will, where Mike Tyson had, to this day, has always claimed that the woman that he was convicted of raping, he said, I did not do that. But he has, not so much recently, he's implied that he did a lot of other really terrible stuff that was never reported. So it's the idea of, is it ever okay to convict a bad person for the wrong crime or a crime they didn't actually do as a sort of retribution or a payback? And speaking of Clint Eastwood, the second Dirty Harry film, Magnum Force, if any of you out there in the peanut gallery, the movie's more than 50 years old. It's a very unusual, unconventional film where Clint Eastwood's tough cop, shoot first, ask questions later, but he's not the sort of guy who would specifically hunt down people who have evaded the law and just take the law into his own hands. That's way beyond Harry Callahan. Well, in Magnum Force, you have a kind of police officer death squad on the San Francisco police force. And they're just basically targeting crime boss. This is a hitman for the crime boss. This is a drug runner for the crime boss that is giving drugs to kids. Boom, boom, boom. And when Harry Callahan finds out what they're doing, it's like, you can't do this. Well, you of all people should understand what we're doing, Inspector Callahan. And Clint, one of the best line readings of his career. I'm afraid you've misjudged me. You think because I'm okay using deadly force that I'm also okay hunting down people who have maybe had clever attorneys, but now I'm just going to put 5 bullets in them? That is a bridge too far, even for Harry Callahan. And in the world of this film, there are plenty of jurors where it's also a bridge too far, but this one guy spells out the fact, I will hang this jury. If it is 11-1 in favor of acquittal, I will hang this jury, and he'll probably get another trial, and he's going to get convicted. And this is something that also comes up in 12 Angry Men, where there are a couple of jurors who seem like they are so strong in their belief, one way or the other, for one reason or another, not necessarily the facts of this case, same kind of thing. They will not change their minds. They will not vote to acquit for one reason or another. The film does not wind up where we think it will. It follows the kind of model of 12 Angry Men, but only up to a point. This has nothing to do with it. This is not a remake, a reboot, a spiritual kind of semi-sequel. No, this is its own film presenting an awful moral and ethical dilemma, and it's beautifully acted. J.K. Simmons as a juror who is a retired cop who starts his own investigation because he also says, something's wrong with this, something's rotten in the state of Denmark, or something's rotten in the state of this case. So he kind of goes off and does his own investigation. And it's just a brilliantly acted film. One of the best movies probably of 2024. I really shouldn't say it that way because there were so many great films from last year that I didn't get to see. But I would give this movie an 8.5 or 9 out of 10. Clint Eastwood, what a fucking boss. What a boss. There's a featurette that you can find on YouTube showing, him directing certain scenes in this film. Guy was 93 going on 94, and I think he turned 94 during filming. He's still bouncing around the set. He's still giving in-person direction to Toni Collette, to Nicholas Hoult. The guy is fucking incredible. He's going to be 95, God willing. He's going to be 95 in May. And this is certainly the best film he's made, I would say, since going back to Sully. I didn't love Cry Macho. Actually, I would say I didn't even like Cry Macho. And the film that he made where he plays the guy who drives the mule. I'm sorry, I almost forgot. The Mule with Bradley Cooper and Diane Wiest, among others. Didn't really like that movie either. The last movie of his I thought was fantastic was Sully, where Tom Hanks, boy, did Clint get max value from Hanks. Hanks just fucking crushes that. Playing Chesley Sullenberger, the saint or the angel, the Hudson River, that famous U.S. Airway flight that was hit by the birds, and he landed on the Hudson River and saved everyone. That's a great movie. Kind of underrated performance by Hanks in an underrated film in Eastwood's just stupendous, almost limitless filmography. But Juror number 2, the most recent movie that I have seen that was an awards contender last year. I don't think it was actually nominated for any Oscars, just too many other great films. We can say 2024 was a fantastic year for movies. But Juror number 2, well worth seeing, streaming on Max. I don't think it's free on any other services right now. But whatever this is worth, I have Max for like $3 a month. I think that deal is still going. It's better than spending $10 or, on another service to rent. But it is well worth seeing. A gripping thriller, an intriguing mystery, and also a character study of the main character and Toni Collette's wannabe district attorney. The actors all bring their A games, and really a fantastic film. Kudos to Clint once again. Tip of the cap to really as great as anybody who has ever worked in the movie business, from the actor perspective, producer, director. In the immortal words of Chevy Chase, the answer is D, all three. There is almost nobody who has done anything close in their career to Clinton Eastwood Jr. Juror number 2 from 2024 with a 93% Rotten Tomatoes score. Absolutely a must-see. This has been episode 469 of the Confessions of a Not-So-Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all so much for spending some of your Sunday early evening here with me in New York. And if you check out this episode on the YouTube channel, haven't done so already, please click like, subscribe, comment, share, turn on those notifications. Or if you catch this episode on the audio platforms such as Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, or the others in which we're hosted, same general rule applies. Click like, subscribe, share, and turn on those notifications. I'll be back with a new episode real soon. Till then, peace.